Well, good evening and welcome. My name is David Ulrich and I'm the superintendent of Kirkwood School District, and we have an exciting Power Hour planned for tonight. We have several guests with us. So before we begin, I would like members of our cabinet to introduce themselves, and then I'll provide a brief COVID update before we go into our Prop R information. So generally speaking, we go in alphabetical order, and we're usually a little informal on these Power Hours. So we'll do first names and go by alphabetical order. So Matt Bailey, you want to introduce yourself, please?
Good evening, everyone. Matt Bailey, Assistant Superintendent for Data Intervention and Support.
All right, Ginger Casey.
Hi, Community Relations and Development. Welcome.
Howard Fields.
Good evening, everyone. Howard Fields, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources.
Brian Painter.
Good evening. I'm Brian Painter, and I have the pleasure of serving our district as Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction.
And Mike Romay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Romay, Chief Financial Officer. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And before we introduce our special guests, I will start with a COVID update. I do think it is reasonable for our community each time we have the opportunity to gather that I take the opportunity to give an update on where we are in our COVID response. As you know, we are still in the midst of it, although we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so just want to remind our folks that starting next week, March 8th, our Early Childhood Center, which has been serving kids in person all the way since last July, they will go back to 5 days, Monday through Friday, of full-time engagement for our youngest learners. Of course, K through 5 has been back all day, full days, Monday through Thursday since October. And then on Monday, the 15th of March, our secondary schools will return to schools all day, Monday through Thursday. So beginning the week of March 15th, we'll have all of our schools, all of our students will have an in-person option Monday through Thursday, full days. And then we've added Fridays at our Early Childhood Center. So we're excited about that. We keep progressing. We keep following the research, the science, and the data and our internal numbers, and striking that balance between maximizing our in-person engagement while at the same time keeping our students and our staff safe. So as a newbie to Kirkwood Schools, I know it sounds crazy to say that. I'm still in my first year as the superintendent. I have met with former board members and our discussions always center around the tremendous amount of support that the Kirkwood school community has provided to our students and staff for more than 150 years. It's an incredible history, and they've been such a great resource for me to learn that history just as quickly as I can. So tonight, we are joined by 3 distinguished board members who have the distinction of serving at various times during the past 3 decades. And also our current board president, Chad Kavanaugh. So Chad, I want to give you the opportunity to say a few words, followed by our guest tonight.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Ulrich, and thank you to all of our citizens who have dialed in tonight. Tonight is all about Prop R, and I just want to say thank you to Dr. Ulrich and his team for all their hard work. Has put in very long days for the last 10 months. They have been doing the heavy lifting of running our district in really some of the most challenging times I think we will ever see. But while doing that, keeping their eye on the future, keeping our eye on the long-term strategy. And I just want to say thank you to Dr. Ulrich, Ms. Casey, Mr. Romay, Dr. Painter, Dr. Fields, and Dr. Bailey, and as well as all of our administrators and teachers and staff. This has truly been unprecedented, so thank you. Prop R did not bubble up. This is not something new. This is not something that just popped up in the last 3 months. Prop R is the culmination of a lot of hard work. Master plan, and that work started back in 2018-19. So I just want to make sure that everybody who's listening, that you understand that there is a history here and there is an iteration in how we got to Prop R. I will just tell you a couple things about myself and the board. I've been in this community for 27 years. All 3 of my kids have gone through the Kirkwood School District, and I still have one in the high school. I will tell you that I personally, as board president and as a citizen, enthusiastically support Prop R. It is the right solution at the right time. Our board members adamantly support Prop R. And I would encourage you to reach out to them and ask them any questions you may have, email them, text them, call them, and they will be happy to talk to you about it. I'm really excited tonight because you're going to hear from 3 former board members, and they span really over 3 decades of our school district. And what you will learn is that our current facilities just didn't pop up one day. They just didn't show up magically. They didn't build themselves. They didn't renovate themselves. They didn't expand. The digital age or the Wi-Fi age or the wireless age. We are really a culmination of a long cycle and a long cadence of funding for our facilities. And that goes over the last 100 years, but these folks can talk about the last 30 years. And we are really no different than any other school district in the country in that this is how we fund our facilities. And it is a normal cycle, and it is a normal cadence, and it is an iteration that we go through roughly every 5 to 7 years so that we can give you a return on your investment for your kids and for your property values. I would like to say that we have Irene Travis with us, who served on the board from 1984 to 1990. Welcome, Irene. We have Liz Walker, who served from 1993 to 2002. Welcome, Liz. And we have Scott Stream, who served from 2005 to 2014. So Scott, your service and leadership. I always say this, and I'm not overstating it. All of us enjoy and benefit from what has happened before us. And I think a lot of times we as a community forget how blessed we are with the facilities we have, the culture we have, the funds that we have. And that didn't happen by accident. And I know that any given time during the last 100 years, there are people involved in that from an administration perspective, from a superintendent perspective, from a community volunteer, and from a school board. And you all are no different than they, and we appreciate all the hard work. Dr. Ulrich, and I think we can go into our power hour.
Yes, I think we're going to start with our guests just saying a little bit about themselves.
All right, thank you, Miss Casey. I screwed that up, I'm sorry.
Okay. Irene?
I'm Irene Travis. I'm the old person in the district, and I served on the board from 1982 to 1990. And I had 3 children that went through it, the district, and 8 grandchildren. One of them still there. And they had a wonderful experience. And I actually grew up and went to Webster High School, but I left the orange blood on the other side, and I bleed red all through and through now. But when I was on the board, the thing that probably was the most important thing during my term was the bond issue in 1986. And we passed that bond issue. And as a result, we were able to add on to all of the grade schools. And we put air conditioning in the high school. So we made some progress, and now it's time to start again.
Thank you, Irene. Liz Walker. Have you on mute, Liz? You gotta do there we go.
Here we go. My husband Jim and I, we have 2 sons who went through the Kirkwood School District. I was thinking about the fact my husband is a proud graduate of Tillman School. And when he attended Tillman in the 1950s, Kirkwood had 11 elementary schools. And when our oldest son started at Westchester in 1983, at that time, enrollment had dramatically dropped, and Westchester had 1 kindergarten classroom, half the kindergartners went in the morning and half the kindergartners went in the afternoon. So there were 2 classes of kindergartners at Westchester. And as Irene told you, by 1986, our elementary schools, the 5 that were remaining, were then overflowing. So it just gives you an idea of the struggle that school boards continue to have to figure out the facilities that a district needs. There can be huge swings, and we've experienced that for sure, just from my husband to our son. At that time also, Westchester had 2 wall air conditioning units, one for the principal's office and one for the nurse's office. And parents, usually mothers, because that was the day when we were the ones who tended to be home, would be responsible for bringing up the cooler of ice in the afternoon and someone in the morning and popsicle run. So fast forward to 1993, when this community approved air conditioning for all of our schools. And all of these bond issues along the way that have served to improve our buildings and really meet the needs of our students and our teachers, all of them have happened because school boards have been willing to go to the public and say, here's our strategic plan, here's what we need to give your children the very best education. And the community has time and again listened to the message. They haven't always said yes. And when they say no, the school board goes back and reviews how to get where we need to go. I will say no school board ever loves going and asking the community for a bond issue or a tax levy, but bond issues are just the smartest way and the most fiscally responsible way for a district to evolve. And now I have grandchildren, not here, but in suburban schools in Chicago area. I have 3 in the Chicago area and 3 grandchildren in the Boston area. And they are dealing with, more year-round school. They all have air conditioning, but they've got security issues. They've got all the things that our children now need that were inconceivable when my son went to school. So buildings need to continue to evolve to meet the needs of students. And maybe at some point, Mike can just give us a little cliff notes of why the bond issue is such a great vehicle and such a fiscally responsible way for a district to be flexible to meet all these building needs. I think that's something people would be very interested in hearing, Mike.
Did I do that now then?
Or later.
Yeah, we'll circle back. We'll get you.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll leave it on the table. My question's on the table for you.
All right, thank you.
Hopefully you wrote that down. Now we have our Scott Stream.
All right, thank you, Ginger, and thank you for letting me participate in this event tonight. I appreciate the opportunity, and it's exciting to see so many good folks that are working with the school district and all. And my name is Scott Stream, and I am born and raised in the city of Kirkwood. I'm a graduate of the Kirkwood High School in '74. That's after going to Kaiser and the North Kirkwood Middle School. My wife all went to Kaiser North Middle School and they graduated in 1978. So I married a much younger person than I am. We've owned 3 houses since we got married. They've all been within a half a mile of where we grew up. So it's kind of scary, but you know what, works for us. We've also had 4 children that have gone through the Kirkwood schools. Andy, our oldest, was 05, Tommy, 07, Whitney, 2009, and then our latest was Madison in 2014. All Kirkwood High School graduates, and all went on to college and did some very nice things. And one of the things I did want to mention is the fact that through the improvement in facilities and all the things you can do with facilities, you're now able to provide better
educational opportunities. One of the things that I noticed with all my children that went through and then went on to college was that they were able to adapt so well to the college experience. And a lot of that is because of what they were able to obtain through the Kirkwood School District and all the programs that are going on there. So we need to continue that. And if you don't move forward, you're moving backward with items. And so this bond issue is extremely important to make sure that we continue to move forward. When I was on the board from 2005 to 2014, we had a couple of bond issues, one of which created the new science facility, the new science center at the high school. We did that for one main reason. It was an opportunity. We knew at that time how important science and engineering was going to be moving forward. And we needed to get out of these archaic classrooms that we had in place at the high school and put together programs where students could actually work side by side with each other, hands-on, get some space to do some real live experiments that they weren't able to get before. The other thing we did was the assembly hall, the David Holly Assembly Hall. That is much more than athletics. This is a facility that has allowed the entire student population to come together at one time, to have pep rallies, to have assemblies, to have gatherings. It's used for a multitude of programs. So we were really excited when that was able to become a part of the Kirkwood school community. And then in 2010, with the passage of that bond issue, we were able to do so much work with the elementary schools, multimedia centers, lunchrooms, space security issues at Kaiser and Robinson, and so on and so forth. The reason I bring that up is because, again, these aren't things that just kind of happen. It's hard work by the school district, the board, the administrators within the district, working back and forth with the citizens to find out what are the needs at that particular time and try to do their best to meet the needs of as many people as possible. And so looking forward to getting some additional information on Prop R and the exciting times that lie ahead. Thank you.
Well, thank you to each of you for your willingness to be here this evening. I greatly appreciate it. And also thank you, obviously, for your years of service to our school district. We very much appreciate that. So I'm going to take a few minutes just to talk a little bit about Prop R, what it would mean for our school district upon being the campaign being successful. So I think the thing that for me, as somebody who came in new and really got to watch the previous Prop S play out, one of the things that has remained unchanged is that fundamental need that we had hoped to address with our previous prop. And that is the fact that we have capacity and utilization issues in our schools right now. And not only do we have those current capacity and utilization issues, but we also expect growth. Now, I will say that expected growth has been downgraded a little bit when we went into our last prop last summer or into June. The projected growth was anywhere from 8 to 9% growth over the next 5 years. Now, with our COVID disruption, we've got new data that tells us that could be expected to be about half of that, 4 to 5%. Growth over the next 5 years. However, 4 to 5% growth, any growth, given our current capacity and utilization issues that we have right now, will only continue to increase pressure on the system, and we'll do things where we'll have to go back and we would have to go back and review things like our classroom class size guidelines. So that's one thing that I want to make sure that I really emphasize is one of the things that as we listened and we gathered feedback, one of the things that we found is our community very much knows that we have capacity and utilization issues. They know this, they believe this, parents see this in our schools. That message got through. However, what the community did not agree that the solution for those issues matched the issues that we had. Okay, so just as Liz mentioned previously, we listened. We went back to our community and we went back through focus groups. We went back through a survey to say, okay, you know that we have capacity and utilization issues. It's very important to our community that we maintain our class size guidelines. But what we also heard time and again through the focus groups in the survey is that the solution of a brand new elementary school on the Lindemann property would not be supported, right? So we did go back and we listened. And so we went back to our source document, the facility master plan that was put together by the community, a lot of community input in 2018-19. It was presented to the board in the spring of 2019. And all of the efforts that Prop R will be put through once successful, all of those efforts align back to that facility master plan. Right. And also, we have ongoing input from our principals. Our principals are working to make sure that the priorities of the facility master plan match the vision that they and their team have for their schools. So each of our schools will see some improvement. Because we need to build capacity, the work that we will add capacity in terms of classrooms at Tillman Elementary School and at Westchester Elementary School. Now, you might ask why those two schools. Those are our two areas where we have the most buildable land to add capacity. However, as I said, all of our schools will see some improvement. At the middle school and high school level, you'll see very familiar improvements because they are very much aligned with Prop S last summer. And in North Kirkwood Middle School, where we now have our central offices, that will be taken back over by North Kirkwood Middle School. Central offices will be moved, and they will gain about 8 to 10 classrooms, including some music-specific classrooms, or a music-specific classroom, which they would be very excited about. Nyford Middle School will add 4 classrooms, including an orchestra classroom specifically for them. The high school will add 15 classrooms. We'll add a welcome center. If you're familiar with the high school, you know that currently the main office is in the middle of the campus. We would move the main campus to the Doherty Ferry side, add a welcome center there, and secure the campus on that side, as well as add a security office on the Essex side. So there would be several improvements at all levels to increase capacity as we grow into, over the next 5 years in that projected growth that we expect. So we would improve security, we would improve accessibility, do things like upgrade bathrooms in each of our buildings, and make sure, again, that we have the opportunity to improve and make additions to all of our schools. And there's a couple of things that I think are very important to point out. And I know Chad pointed them out, but I just want to reiterate. This was a unanimous vote by our Board of Education. And that was very important to have that 100% support from the board. They know how important this is. They've listened to the community, and they believe in this solution in Prop R. And the last thing I will leave you with is this does provide an opportunity, as these 3 board members who are here, we can certainly make sure that we give credit where credit is due. We are able to bring this solution to our community with a 0 tax rate change bond proposal. Okay, so it's a 0 tax rate change bond proposal. And we'll be able to do all of these improvements that I described underneath that umbrella. And the reason we're able to do that is because of the good stewardship of the community's resources over the past 10, 20, 30 years that you heard our guests describe this evening. So we're very excited. I'm very excited. I believe that our community will support Prop R because I do believe it's right for kids and it is certainly right for our community. As you heard, each of our guests have been involved in successful bond and levy campaigns, have given years of support to our students, staff, and community, and certainly have a unique insight as to how school district provide resources to meet our students' academic needs, and the trust that our community places in our elected school board members. So just want to make sure that I point out here on March 3rd that this month is Women in History Month, and I believe Joan Dow served as the first female board president in 1985. And I know Irene, I believe you served on the board with Ms. Dow. Would you like to say a few words about her and her legacy?
I couldn't unmute. this thing. Yes, Joan and I were not only board members together, but close friends. And there was nobody that could have done a better job than Joan. And she was the first board president, the first woman board president, and did an outstanding job. And just seeing her picture right there, just, I can hardly get past this. She led the way for women, because there have been many strong women that have followed her as board presidents. So I'm very proud of what she did, and she led the way.
Thank you, Irene. Yes, it has been, each of you shared a little bit of information of the bond issues from the past. And I know we talked a little bit about in 1986, that's when we kicked off air conditioning. Can you imagine? First was Kirkwood High School. Many times these bonds are structured in a way that we couldn't do air conditioning for all schools at the same time. We started with the high school. We continued from there, and we also added air conditioning at all the elementary schools, I believe in 1993. Is that right, Liz? I think that's when we were able to do that. If you want to share a little bit about the ice trucks or the ice deliveries.
Right. Yeah, yes. And so the middle schools and the elementary schools continued to have no central air. And I think by 1993, and it's not easy. Change is not easy. And when we've lived with things a certain way most of our lives, to recognize times are different. But when I think of our kids attending school now, we can't imagine it. We just wouldn't. So I think the community recognized when Dr. Ulrich talked about a strategic plan for facilities. It always matches the strategic plan for academic excellence. And you can imagine kids sitting in unair conditioned rooms are not in the best circumstance to learn. So that and our old buildings, and they were getting old by then, wiring, and we've all, if you live in Kirkwood in an older home, many people do, the wiring that served in the 1940s and 50s doesn't serve now. When you add air conditioning, you've got to add a whole infrastructure of electrical as well. So all of that is to say that, those are things that I think when the community thought about it, just made perfect sense. So, and they overwhelmingly approved. So, yep.
And that was 1993. I mean, that was a legendary year for the district. There was 4 propositions on the ballot, and each one of them passed.
Yeah.
So certainly a legacy to leave. And one of the things that passed was our Keating Theater. And I'm going to show a little picture of the groundbreaking for the theater. Well, maybe I'm not. I thought I had that up here, but I do want to show a picture of Dr. Keating. And Liz, if you want to share a little bit about the Superintendent Keating and his legacy.
Well, and Irene, even more than I, because Dr. Keating had been superintendent of schools here in Kirkwood for many years, and he was such a dedicated educator, cared so much about kids and students, and very sadly that those 4 propositions passed in the spring of '93, and Dr. Keating died very suddenly that summer of I think a heart attack, and so we were we were left with just the struggle of how to move forward. His leadership had been so crucial. So, so naming the Keating Center after him seemed not only fitting, but a way in which the district could continue to remember that name very fondly. He was a great guy.
Irene,
Anything else, Irene, you may have?
Well, he was certainly a strong leader for the Kirkwood district. Not only was he a strong leader for Kirkwood, but districts all over the country called Tom Keating to find out his opinion, what he would do in certain situations. There were several national meetings that as a board we attended, and people would line up to talk to Tom Keating. He really was a very, very integral part of this district. And I'm happy to say that I think David is following right in his footsteps.
oh,
You know,
you got your marker, Dave.
if I can interject there, I remember Steve Kanabe was the president of the Raytown School Board back in the 80s. And I remember him telling me specifically about a trip to Kirkwood, Missouri, meeting with Mr. Keating in the Kirkwood School District as they shared ideas. I didn't know who he was back then, but I obviously found out later in life. And so what Irene says is the truth. And people did go, Kirkwood was the beacon on the hill. It was pretty cool.
Thank you. And then in 2000, there was another bond issue passed. And this is something that I think is very near and dear to all of our hearts. And that's Kirkwood Early Childhood Center. And I'm going to show a picture of the groundbreaking and parents as teachers. So I think everybody can relate to the work the Parents as Teacher program gives to our families, and also Kirkwood Early Childhood Center. So they do wonderful work there. I didn't know if any board members would like to speak a little bit about, Scott, if you want to say a little bit about it. I know you weren't on the board yet then.
Right, but I was serving on the Kirkwood School District Foundation at that time. I had served a number of years on the foundation before being elected to the Board of Education. And so I remember that time distinctly because we kept talking about how important it was to make sure that we're taking care of the pre-K kids. What can we do as a district, as a community, to help those children? Not only through the KECC, but also, as you mentioned, the parents as teachers, which was a very well recognized program throughout the state. The Kirkwood program was, and I think all the educators that are on the panel here can attest more than I can the importance of getting to children at an early age, and that was just so important at that time to at least get on the cutting edge of it, if you will, and put a strong emphasis on that, and to really make it a focal point for the district. And I think that was one of the key points about that entire bond issue.
Ginger, I'd just like to say that Teresa McCauley was very, very instrumental in getting that at the top of the list. She really worked very hard. And I can remember as a board member, she took me to, I think it was the Lindbergh district, just so I could see what the early childhood program was all about. And she really worked hard to make it a really outstanding program.
Well, it still is. And
I know it is.
She laid a great foundation.
Yes, she did.
They're doing wonderful things there. And I don't know if anybody on cabinet wants to add anything to that, but we continue to serve. How many students do we serve there now? Either Brian or Matt could probably chime in to how many students we're currently serving in that program.
hundreds and hundreds of students, and not just students with that come from our community as well, but also several students with special needs because they do early childhood special education as well. And so just hundreds and hundreds of kids have come through the Kirkwood Early Childhood Program. And they were the leaders for us this year as well. When we were getting back into school, they were the first back for us, true pioneers, to have everybody back in our buildings.
Thank you.
I'll just add that our Parents as Teachers program continues to be fantastic. And our community has supported us even as funding for Parents as Teachers has not been what it once was. And we know we have families who move to Kirkwood School District because of the early childhood program, particularly the special education program at KCC.
So that was with a bond issue in 2000. And then I think the groundbreaking was in May 2001 and it opened in May of 2002. So those things take time. And I don't know, Mike, if you want to just say a few words about how long construction actually takes on some of these projects.
Sure. Some of the significant construction that we're planning will probably take 18 to 24 months before it's completed. It takes, after Prop R passes, we'll spend a few months refining and really preparing all the details of the construction documents and bid it, and construction would likely start in the fall. And we'll be building over 2 winters, but it'll take, by the time it's all said and done, about 2 years. Some of the projects that are not as intensive, we may be able to finish sooner, but some of the major construction work definitely will take about 2 years before it's all completed.
So then we gear up to 2005, and that was when we looked at the science facility. Scott, you mentioned a little bit about that. I want to cover a little bit more about the initiatives that were created in 2005.
Yeah, and I get back to that point about, though our classrooms were fine at that time for our chemistry and our biology and the general sciences and the like, they were not going to take us to the next level. And again, getting back to the point of, if you're not moving forward, then, something's not going well, and the kids are going to fall behind, the students are going to fall behind. And so we were able to put together a standalone facility that just increased the number of classrooms, increased the size of those classrooms by 2-3 times, so that there could be a lot more maneuverability within the classroom, so experiments could take place, so activities could happen, so students could work together. And it just was one of those focal points that we really wanted to hone in on, because we could see, again, through the studies, through communication with our citizens, just the feedback that we were getting, the importance of science moving forward. And from the very beginning, it was recognized as a leading facility for science within the high schools throughout not only the community, but the state. And we've had a lot of national attention as well from that. So we're excited about how that all came together. Very excited about that. Along with that, then we had an opportunity. Initially, we were looking at taking the Denver Miller Gymnasium, because at that time, the Denver Miller Gymnasium, going back to that air conditioning piece, was not air conditioned, and it could only hold about 1,250 kids. Well, there's a lot more than that going to the high school. So you can never have one central location for students to gather, to have assemblies, to have pep rallies and the like. And so we were able to put together the new Assembly Hall, and purposely named it the Assembly Hall for that reason, because it is much more than athletics that takes place there. Though it's an awesome gymnasium, it's an assembly hall where people can gather, not only the students and staff, but also the community comes together quite often within that facility. So that just kind of took it to the next level, which is what you have to do in order to stay ahead of the curve. You just have to. So we were excited about those those were the two major projects. There were other minor things, but those were the two major projects from the 05 bond issue.
Yes. Also in that same era, well, it's called the Walker Science Facility. And I know you mentioned the foundation earlier, and I know I met Liz Walker's husband, Jim. He was on the foundation.
Right.
Yeah, the Earl E. and Myrtle.
I would just clarify, Earl and Myrtle Walker, although I always said I'd be happy for them to adopt me if they ever had wanted to, but different Walker families. But
Yes, I'm sorry, you're right. I should have.
no, yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. A lot every so often.
Yeah. So are the Early and Myrtle E. Walker Foundation and the family supported the Science Center, and the foundation then also continued to raise funds for outfitting the Science Center to the tune of about $1.6 million. So,
Ginger, if I could address that, that's what makes this community so cool. It's not just people sitting back waiting for things to happen. It's people getting engaged, making things happen. This was a perfect example of a community coming together with the bond issue and then private funds. Yes, there was a big initial donation from the Walker family, which was very much appreciated, but there were a lot of $10, $25, $50, $100 donations to kind of help outfit that science facility. And without that, it would have been much more difficult to operate. So again, just another outpouring of support that this community will provide if you lead the way and say, this is our objective, this is how we're going to get there, but we need everybody to buy in and help out, and the people will help out. They will participate in the process, and that was really exciting to see over the years and with that whole facility. So exciting times.
Ginger, along that line, I will say that Barb Byerly, who is such a gift to our district, she works tirelessly behind the scenes on a lot of things. And she and I went to the Whitmire family thinking we would ask for $10,000 to put some equipment in that science center. They were so generous. We had $100,000 donation from them just to equip that science center. I mean, that's how this district responds to needs.
Yes,
It was quite exciting.
Yes, and I was thinking about him when we were talking, because Blanton Whitmire and his wife Peg, they've both since passed, but we met them along that journey, and they've continued to give. I don't know if Brian wants to talk a little bit about how they contributed to camps, summer camps. We had a partnership with Joplin. It was an amazing, as you said, friendship and partnership. We also met Bob and Donna Mae King along that journey too. And so, Brian, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, you did a great job. I would just say that we were very fortunate to get funding that supported. I think the Whitmires were very interested in young kids getting engaged in science, and they knew the value of that. And if we can pique their interest, then that could be a career path for kids that may otherwise not even know that was an option for them. And so they gave the district money to develop and support camps for kids. And so some of those were internal, some of those continue actually to be external that we support students going to. And so we're very fortunate for that. It's just the sort of thing that this community has done for our district and for our kids and continues to do today.
Thanks. Well, that gears us all the way up to 2010. And Scott, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the efforts in 2010. And I'm going to show a quick picture of North Glendale Library while you're sharing some information.
Yeah, one of the things that the board and the administration and what we heard from the community was that we need to make sure we're addressing the needs of the various elementary and middle schools, and each one had different needs. You're showing a picture there of North Glendale. One of the things that I remember very strongly about that project was that their library was very antiquated and they needed to be upgraded. And so these multimedia centers, as they were called them, because it's different than the library that we used to call it back in the day, but it allowed for all of the students to do so many more activities. And We were able to accomplish that in a couple of the elementary schools. We were able to accomplish some major redo of Kaiser and Robinson with their entrances and new classrooms because of their overcrowding. That for most of you that know that back when Kaiser and Robinson had two separate entrances into the front of the school, and we combined them into one, made everything into the central. So that was a major undertaking to change the landscape of how those schools looked and operated with classrooms and with children and with visitors and parents, et cetera. And so we were able to get that accomplished. One thing I also want to make sure I talk about is the fact that at the middle schools, both at Knifer and at North, we took the same emphasis we had taken to the high school a few years ago. And we put together brand new science facilities at both middle schools. I mean, top-notch ones too. I mean, we worked long and hard on that to make sure that those facilities were just as nice as what they have up at the high school and could accomplish the same thing. And so new wings were built on these schools, and it was not an easy undertaking, but we had everybody on board, and again, helping the kids at the middle school level to prepare them then for the high school experience. So again, just some good overall interaction with community, administration, the board, working together to get a lot of things done for all the students within the district.
I remember we also expanded the band rooms at that time.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, that was quite a big effort.
Well, and that's I mean, another piece that I also want to mention is the journalism. You know, journalism within the Kirkwood community. When I was in school there in the early 70s, Homer Hall was the dean, if you will, of journalism, and was winning national awards for what we were doing with the Kirkwood Call and all the publications there at the high school. It was just a top-notch journalism program, and it has been ever since. Ever since it has been. But similar to some of these other programs, the facilities were not meeting the needs of the current world at which we live in. And so in 2010, we were able to expand and create new opportunities, new rooms, new space for the journalism program, and taking it to the next level so that it wasn't just, doing your writing on a table, but just taking it all past that to the video world and everything, and the internet and everything in between. So again, just a real good utilization of dollars that the community provided the district to improve the student experience.
Well, I think that gets us back to dollars and cents, and that's Micro May, and talking about the investment that we're making and the interest rates, as Liz mentioned earlier.
Sure, it's as everyone has said, it's really important that we continue to reinvest in our schools, just like you would do with your own home, with maintaining your home. Having great schools is important to have a strong community, and bond issues, that's the mechanism that school districts use to improve and maintain their schools. All school districts in St. Louis County have bond debt and a debt service levy, all but one. So we have a lot of needs in our schools, and those were all mentioned today. Adding classrooms for our growing enrollment in crowded schools, the security improvements that we have planned, accessibility in our schools, and just maintenance of our buildings. So we are going to improve all of our buildings. It's much needed work. Now's the time to do it. Our bonds that we issued in 2010 are just about paid off. So we have an opportunity to issue more debt without increasing the debt service tax rate. And interest rates right now are historically low. They're at below 1%, which it'll never be that low again. And right now, if we were to issue the bonds, we could expect to pay about 0.7% in interest. So again, it's incredibly low. And it's, again, now's the time to meet the needs of our kids and the facility improvements that are needed.
Thanks, Mike. We've got about 10 minutes left. I don't know if Chad and Dave want to say anything, or if any of our guests want to say any parting words. It's been a great conversation, that's for sure.
Well, Mr. Kavanaugh, I'll certainly give
I'll
you
just
an
say a couple
opportunity
things.
to-
So first of all, Scott,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No,
Scott,
please do,
Liz,
Mr.
and
Kavanaugh.
Irene. No, that's okay. No, Scott, Liz, Irene, thank you very much. And I would just say to our community that, you know, these are 3 examples of many who have come before us and really worked hard, and we are all benefiting from it. Again, to our parents out there, again, this is a cycle. This is a cadence of funding our facilities. I know that when you drive by them, they look nice, they look well maintained. And we must stay on top of them to make sure they're serving all of our students in a comprehensive and balanced approach. I think tonight you heard academics, you heard athletics, performing arts, band, journalism. This is a comprehensive work that we are always doing. It will never end. And it is the best for our kids. And then for our citizens who don't have kids, we all benefit greatly with our community and our property values because of our school district. And that is a fact. And I just want to be very frank that you really can't argue that. Look at a home in Kirkwood and you look at that same home somewhere else, it is not worth as much. And so this is a constant investment that we have responsibility, and it's good stewardship. And I would just ask that if you have any questions, please reach out. Scott, Liz, Irene, thank you very much. And again, thank you for help painting a picture of the past home in Kirkwood. And you look at that same home some. Uh-oh, I got some reverb there. So anyway, thank you very much, and I'll stop talking.
All right. Well, I think that, you know, in terms of, you know, of me and my role and finishing up for this evening, I think it's a fair question from our community to ask us why now. And I think the answer to that, and I want anybody that gets that question asked, you know, whether it's our distinguished guests that joined us this evening, or for those of you who are watching that may have questions. The fact is, as I mentioned before, our community knows and understands that we have capacity issues already. They understood that message. We're behind already. Right, from our efforts last year, we're behind already. And as Mr. Romay talked about, it takes time. Once this is successful, it will take time for us to build out this capacity and relieve that pressure on the system. It is one of the last times that we will have to find a solution that has a 0 tax rate change. Right, this is one of the last times that we had that opportunity. Yeah, we listened. We listened to our community. We listened to folks that were very much in favor of our last effort, and we listened to folks that were not in favor of our last efforts, and we're very public in that. We listened and we tailored a solution that we believe our community will support. Our Board of Education put this on the ballot 7-0, and I appreciate the support that Chad, you, and the board have given me and the team in the district, and the confidence that you have in us to get this done. As I said before, every school, every place we put students will see improvements, if not additions. And finally, what I will say, you know, as the superintendent, whether you have students in our district now, or you used to have students in our district, or maybe have grandkids in our district, it's my responsibility and our responsibility. And my hope would be, you had the expectation of me as the superintendent of the district to work with the Board of Education, work with our teams, to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our students. And that's our goal with Prop R. We believe that it does that. We believe that our community will support it. We believe that it's right for kids, and we believe that it's right for the community. So thank you very much for being here this evening. We greatly appreciate your presence. And as always, if you have any questions, you can go to our district's website. You can reach out. There are many people in our community that can't wait to share what Prop R will mean for our students in our community. So thank you very much.
We're great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.